Oh, friends, it is time. Hi, it's Romania Black, and we are reading Heaven Official's Blessing. Chapters 95 to 97. We're just doing 3 tonight because 4 got pretty crazy last week. I do stand by my decision. I'm glad I read 4 chapters. I'm glad I read through that because I think ending on the point where he was just thinking about the lamps would have been, it probably would not have been a very long video. Now that I'm thinking about it, probably would have been like a total of like an hour and 15 minutes, which is pretty low for when I review these chapters. But I last week felt like an overload. it was like romance, romantic gestures. Hua Chong's writing plays in Banyu, giving his man all the lanterns, and then he's coming Inception-like through dreams to save his man from smoke babies. So, But yeah, if you actually look at the book and where we're at now, we're getting towards the end. We're getting into the last section of old volume 3. How about that? I'm sure by March we'll be in volume 3 and volume 4. So that's exciting. That's very exciting. But I love this volume so much. I would say, I don't want to say too much because we're not through it, but so far this may be my favorite volume. I love this volume an awful lot. Even though it's been painful. Very painful. The rewards so far have been worth it. So, Xie Lian getting kissed in his dream. Hua Chong coming in to save him. I've got a couple comments before we start, but I'm so excited, y'all, to get into these chapters and to see what all we've got. But so I do want to make note. I went back and reread these chapters because, of course, I did. And the one thing that I didn't really talk about in the discussion that I kind of wanted to was that whenever Hua Chong's play about Banyu, him and Xie Lian was playing, Jun Woo was kind of curious. He was like, I've never seen this play before. So there's a part of me that's like, Jun Woo is going to find out, or maybe he already knows, that Xie Lian's got a thing for Hua Chong, and Xie Lian doesn't even realize it, and then what do we do? Because Pei Ming's all convinced. Pei Ming's like, I told you they had a secret office romance. That's kind of the vibes he gave off in the last set of chapters. But Junwoo seemed kind of curious, like, what's been going on? So, that part stuck out to me going back and rereading, but we've got some comments to get through before we start these 3 chapters. I can't tell you how hyped I am. It's been very hard. It's only been a couple days since I read the last set, but I couldn't wait. I was like, I'm recording this on like a Tuesday night because I couldn't wait. I was like, I'm going to wait and see if I get any comments for this last set, and then I'm going to dive right into this, and that's where we are. Sarah Linda talked about how Qi Ying's followers are basically bros. Maybe they don't have a kink. Maybe they're not masochists. They're just kind of like bros. Like, oh man, Qi Ying's so badass. Like he's even threatening to kick our asses. Like, I was like, oh my god, if Qi Ying's followers are just a bunch of frat bros, that changes everything. So I just imagine Qi Ying's like, I'm a gamer. Why are you guys following me? I'm so excited to learn more about his character. I really am. But maybe it is, Sarah Linda says, because of how fierce Xie Lian is, and that he's very like blunt and straightforward. Maybe given like a knee, like, oh gosh, Mingyu, like the older knee brother. My mind is escaping me in Modazushi, the oldest knee brother. Maybe it's giving off a vibe like him. I don't know. I kind of had Pei Ming pegged for that, but I'm maybe changing my mind. And then Sarah Linda also said that it might be that Xie Lian might be a little envious of the Rainmaster in the last set of chapters because the Rainmaster's followers seem to do what he tells them to do. Which is kind of funny, right? I hadn't thought of it that way. But yeah, Xie Lian has told his followers to do all these things. Nobody listens except Hua Chong. But the Rainmaster specifically tells his followers to do stuff, and they just, of course. So I find that interesting. I kind of wondered with the Rainmaster if that was maybe because he's just a master of one specific thing. Xie Lian tried to be a jack of all trades. He tried to be a martial god, but also like be one for the people and be like help heal and do this stuff. He tried to bite off more than he could chew. Whereas the Rainmaster seems like, no, here's my job. I'm going to do it. If you do like I say, then I'll do my one job. And maybe he just keeps things so simple that everybody just follows him. I don't know. I'm very curious about Qi Ying. I'm very curious about the Rainmaster. And I know eventually we'll find out more about them. So there's that. Also, the lanterns from this last set of chapters were in the OP of season 1. I was like, oh, they were like all the lanterns in the sky. It's like the ultimate foreshadowing. I'm sure you book readers were looking at that OP being like, we're not getting that scene yet. What cool foreshadowing. I mean, I've seen other shows do foreshadowing for future seasons in their OPs and EDs, so that's pretty cool. I like that. Anime Annie said that their suggestion that it seems like Nan Fong and Fu Yao decided to voluntarily go with Xie Lian rather than being forced to. And Anime Annie says it seemed in the last set of chapters like usually they had to be forced to go do something, but here they willingly volunteered. And I was like, oh yeah, it does kind of seem like that, which makes their detention seem all the weirder. Like, why were they punished for volunteering to go help Xie Lian? Unless somebody has a secret agenda against Xie Lian. Who knows? But I thought that was interesting. And then there is a comparison Anime Annie pointed out that I kind of liked of Mu Qing, Feng Shen, and Xie Lian with Ling Wen, Shi Wudu, and Pei Ming. Like, you have two sets of trios. And the funny thing is that you have Ling Wen and Xie Lian, who are kind of the odd ones out, but then you have Pei Ming and Shi Wudu, who are like best bros forever, like hanging out at each other's saunas. And then you have Mu Qing and Feng Shen, who are the polar opposite. They can't stand each other without bickering. So I thought those dynamics are really cool to see them kind of back to back. And Xie Lian's kind of the black sheep of his group, and Ling Wen's kind of the black sheep of her group. So I thought that was pretty cool. SQQLBH 134314 said that in Chinese society, typically the hierarchy goes, scholars are the most respected, and then followed by farmers, workers who are like in construction otherwise, and then merchants are considered to be the lowest. But in Heaven Official's Blessing, because of Shi Wudu, the merchants are kind of like, it's kind of viewed the opposite, right? Where the Rainmaster and the farmers are viewed like down on the pyramid. And then you have the merchants kind of up above because of Shi Wudu's role as the god of wealth and the water tyrant. So I thought that was pretty neat to notice that the Heavenly Realm kind of flips it. That's kind of cool. And then finally, Molly MIGH had this great scenario that I was like, I hope this is how it happens. I don't know if Molly's read the whole story. I don't think she has. But she had this scenario that, you know, like Xie Lian keeps taking in all these kids. So eventually the Poochie Shrine is just going to be a Poochie orphanage. And I'm like, that would be thematically so perfect because his shrine was where Hua Chong went as a child to have a home away from home. When he didn't feel safe at home, he felt safe at Xie Lian's shrine. So if they like end up having this little orphanage or this home for wayward children, and it's like a shrine is a sanctuary for all these kids, my heart will fall to the floor and I will just melt into a puddle because that will be too precious. Too precious, y'all. I can't deal. But those are my comments. I'm sure I've talked way too long. We're under 10 minutes. But yeah, we're going to do chapters 95, 96, and 97, which in the English translation goes from pages 305 to 332. And we are picking up right where this kiss leaves off at. And it's almost Valentine's Day, y'all. Cheers. So I'm excited. But let's not waste any more time. I'm excited. The last several chapters, I've not taken notes. I've just wait till the end and then go back through the chapters. And I really like doing that. Normally, unless the only exception is if it's a chapter that's like the chapters 90 and 91, or the chapters 89 and 90 were so packed with content, I needed to take notes. But in this case, we're just going to go with it. So I'm excited, y'all, to see about this kiss and Xie Lian's reaction. Xie Lian's never been kissed. Ever. This is like first time in a dream even. What's he gonna do? But we're gonna find out here in 3, 2, 1. Let's go. Chapter 95. The mind in disarray, but say not the tender heart is too. In an instant, yeah, his eyes bulging. Oh my God. Never in his life had anyone treated him this way before. Yeah, nobody's ever tried to kiss Xie Lian. First, no one dared, and second, no one could. However, this person was swift like the devil and appeared so suddenly that before he even had the chance to defend himself, he'd fallen into such a state. Freaking out, he was flustered and his limbs were thrashing, desperately trying to push the other way. Instead, he choked on large mouthfuls of water, gurgling out strings of bubbles like crystal water beads from his mouth. This was a big no-no underwater, and thus the hand around his waist held him tighter. Their bodies pressed close together. and Xie Lian's struggling hands were firmly folded and crushed against his own chest, unable to move. His lips were securely sealed, the kiss deepening, and a stream of gentle, chilled air slowly passed through. Dumbfounded and helpless, he began to accept his fate. And they finally saw clearly. Oh, he didn't know who this was! It was Hua Chong. The moment he realized it was Hua Chong, he stopped struggling. Oh my God, no! He stopped struggling, and numerous random thoughts popped into his head, all inappropriate for the time and place. The scandal! Such as, so it was Hua Chong. No wonder he's cold. Ghosts don't need to breathe, but he can still deliver air to me? Don't go sink in water? It's a dream, Xie Lian! And just then, Hua Chong suddenly opened his eyes. To be staring into those dark eyes at such a close distance. He instantly froze, and soon he started struggling again, his arms flailing like a duck so dumb and awkward it was drowning itself. The flailing arms were easily stopped by Hua Chong, and with his arm still firmly around Xie Lian's waist, he took him and swam towards the surface steadily. It didn't take him long before the two broke through the surface. The waters were freezing and the air cold, too, yet Xie Lian's whole body was burning up. The moment they floated to the top, he wanted to turn away, but the cloud of black smoke was still swarming above the waters, watching with predatory eyes. Oh, no. Oh, you shut up! He pulled him back. They hadn't separated for even a second before they were pressed tightly against each other once more. They were aching and numb from the kiss, feeling as though he was going to lose his senses. If this was anyone else, he would have long since stabbed with his sword. But this just had to be Hua Chong. Oh my God! Oh, he was completely at a loss what to do. His tears ready to fall from distress. Just then beyond Hua Chong's face, he saw thousands upon millions of silver butterflies break through the water. Yes! Come rescue them, butterflies! Accompanied by a sharp trill, that thick rain of butterflies shot from the surface like bullets, their wings reflecting a cold glare sharp like blades. Within moments, the child spirit screamed from the slashing. The smoke can get slashed by butterfly wings? It's a dream. Of course it can. And tried to flee in all directions. But the web of those butterflies enveloped from the earth to the heavens, sealing it within. No matter how much it rammed and pounded, it couldn't break through. It's like a butterfly prison! Hua Chong's eyes never lifted even once. And with Xie Lian in his embrace, they again dove into the waters. Oh my gosh. The Songhwa's not going to give us this, but oh my God, I need it. Once separated, another stream of air bubbles spewed from Xie Lian's mouth, and Hua Chong freed a hand, tossing out dice. The dice spun in the water rapidly too, and they spun out a strong whirling current. The two broke through the water's surface. This time the shore was not far away, and only then did Hua Chong bring Xie Lian to swim over. Who knows what shore it was either. There were lights and voices of crowds seemingly close yet far away. Behind them over the waters, that troop of butterflies shot into the sky with that cloud of black smoke in their captivity. They flew towards the faint lights in the distance, leaving behind a long trail of wails from the child spirit. Mom! Oh my God. Looking at each other thus, he was finally able to take a good look at Hua Chong. They had only parted way for just a few days, but Xie Lian felt like it had been a long time since they last met. It seems like it's been a while. Hua Chong, this time, was older by a couple years compared to the last time. His face had always been handsome, shimmering brighter than the waters. His locks were exceedingly black, his skin extremely white, and on the right side of his cheek was a very thin, small braid, a red string threading through it intricately. This was the first time Xie Lian realized that above Hua Chong's forehead was a widow's peak, and it made his face look even more shapely and alluring. I've never imagined Hua Chong with a widow's peak, but okay. The black eye patch that covered an eye emitted traces of killing aura, softening that refined charm, making his good looks reach an almost perfect balance. Oh, Xie Lian! Now, anybody that says Xie Lian is heterosexual at this point, I'm like, he just spent like an entire paragraph like describing Hua Chong and his widow's peak. You need to sit down. His brows were knitted as if he was trying to hold back. Oh, I'd say after 800 years. Your Highness, From the hair on his head to all over his body, his entire person was dripping with water. His lips were swollen, his eyes blank. I'm a little hungry. Well, Chong was taken aback. Like, okay. No, I'm just a little sleepy. He flipped around his back facing Hua Chong, bent down to his knees, his hand touching the ground, fumbling as if looking for something. Oh my God, Xie Lian, you're a hot mess. What are you looking for? I'm looking for a thing. I'm looking for my bamboo hat. Where's my bamboo hat? If anyone else were to watch this scene play out, they would yell, he's done for. He's gone stupid. But in reality, it was only because Xie Lian had never experienced something like this before. The shock was too great, making him lose it a little. Xie Lian crawled on his hands and knees, shuffling away with his back still facing Hua Chong. I can't find it. I'm leaving now. I'm going to go home to eat. I need to collect some scraps now. I'm sorry. I'm leaving now. This cry was like a cry for help, and Hua Chong said hastily, no. He hurriedly tried to run away, but within a few steps his foot twisted and he fell back onto the ground. Oh, the needle was deeply... Oh, yeah, what's wrong? Oh, nothing. It doesn't hurt at all. It's fine. How can it not hurt? Hua Chong's like, no. He was actually going to remove his boot. Oh, it was bleeding through his boot. Oh, no. There's no need. He kept crawling, trying to scamper. Hua Chong held on to him, stopping him from doing so. It was complete pandemonium, and it finally alerted everyone else on shore. A roaring crowd, chattering and blabbering. A large group of who knows what kinds of weirdos all came around them, surrounding them and clamoring. Who goes there? How dare? Don't you know what this place is? Are you done with life, or do you want to die again? Blimey! Ain't this my lord? The crowd of ghosts immediately hollered in unison. Oh, good day, your old lordship! Xie Lian let out a wail in his head. He internally screamed! Wishing desperately to cover his face with his hands, it was the ghost city. There were quite a number of ghosts in the crowd. He remembered seeing roughly from the last time he came. He even saw a familiar hog head. The two of them were drenched from head to toe, surrounded by countless humans and ghosts alike watching them, and Hua Chong still had his hand on his ankle, not letting go. This was such a shocking scene that it finally snapped Xie Lian out of it. But who knew that once the crowd of ghosts recognized Hua Chong, they became even more excited, shouting, my lord, are you trying to rape someone? Do you need help? We'll hold them down. Scram, he ordered. And they scrammed. Oh my God. Xie Lian still wanted to just pass out and everything, because Hua Chong had risen to his feet and bent down and gently swept him up into his carry. He walked with heavy steps to leave the shore. Xie Lian was still dressed in woman's clothing. Oh, and could only be grateful that the pillow was no longer stuffed in his belly. Otherwise, it'd paint an even more terrifying picture. The frightful thought finally brought him completely back to the present. He struggled a bit, but didn't succeed. So he cleared his throat softly. Sun Long, I'm sorry. I'd sort of lost it just now. How embarrassing. Shut up. What had happened just then was really too great of a shocking blow for him. The word blow was harsh, but this was his first time after all. However, it wasn't only because it was just his first time. In many centuries past, it wasn't like there were any seductive women ghosts who tried to tempt him with their naked bodies, but Xie Lian had never reacted this embarrassingly before. Why did he descend into such a state now? He could only guess it must be because Goshi had only ever taught him how to defend against women, but not against men. He had no experience, which is why he hadn't known how to react. I mean, sure, Jan, you keep telling yourself that. Thinking back to the way he conducted himself, Xie Lian was slightly amused and felt maybe he overreacted. He thought Song Long had meant well, but Xie Lian had ended up scaring him to this point. Truly, he was being too impolite. Hua Chong, however, replied, nothing of the sort. I was the one who crossed the line and offended Gege. Song Long is in the wrong and apologizes. I was in dire straits and you were only trying to help. Wasn't really a big deal anyway. Oh, that's right. Song Long, why have you suddenly appeared again? Where's that child spirit? Treating your wounds comes first. Oh, being all authoritative. They had already arrived before a magnificent building. Oh, so had that burnt Paradise Manor been rebuilt that fast? It looked exactly the same as the old one. With a guilty conscience, Xie Lian was too embarrassed to ask about it. I just love that Hua Chong is just carrying him into this Paradise Manor 2.0, asking no questions, just go with it. Oh, and mounted the black jaded divan. It's a clever choice of translation. Hua Chong himself half knelt below. Oh, come on! He is like, at your feet, Xie Lian! At your feet! Holding Xie Lian's injured foot and checking the tiny puncture dyed by blood underneath. Oh, the position made Xie Lian uncomfortable. I can't imagine why. And he cried no and made a move to get down, but Hua Chong pushed him back, removing his boot and sock with a steady hand. This foot appeared to be one with the cursed shackle. A deep black chain locked around that clean white ankle, a powerful contrast. His eyes only lingered for a moment on that soft ankle before his palm pressed against Xie Lian's injury. This might hurt a bit. Don't hold back, Gege. Cry out if it hurts. Oh! Oh! Scandal! Scandal! Ah! Okay. Mind in the disarray, but say not the hardest tinder too. Part 2, Electric Boogaloo! Before he finished his sentence, he felt Hua Chong squeeze with a bit of force, and pain crawled up his leg, and he couldn't help but shrink back. Although Hua Chong's strength was already extremely controlled, and this little bit of pain was nothing to Xie Lian. For some reason, in front of him, Xie Lian seemed to be unable to hide away from his pain. Maybe it was because of what Hua Chong had told him beforehand. Maybe he tried too hard to hold back, but it backfired. Oh, don't worry. It'll be over soon. Don't be scared. He shook his head, but Hua Chong's hands became even gentler, his hand operating speedily. When he raised it again, that tiny needle was already extracted. All right, it's done. The tip of the needle was glistening with a vicious poison. Oh! He closed his 5 fingers and crushed it easily into a small waft of black gas dissipating into the air. What a heavy air of grudge. A typical fetus spirit shouldn't have that spiritual power this strong. You're right. So this fetus spirit must not be from a normal miscarriage. Why does my mind immediately go to Pei Ming? I don't know why, but I'm like, it just is that's immediately where my mind went to, but we'll see. Just then a masked man entered with his head down. Oh, is this the moon officer? He presented a clay pot with both his hands and handed it to Hua Chong. Oh, but this man's sleeves were tied down fully and completely, so he couldn't see if it's the same waning moon officer. Hua Chong took the pot with one hand and glanced at it and turned around to pass to Xie Lian. Oh, a child crying could be heard from within. Something was madly knocking about, making the clay pot shake, unable to remain standing, so he became more cautious. Oh. Oh, why would you open it? No, why would you open it? Oh, ah! Inside the pot laid a puddle of something like a fetus. Although both the arms and legs were grown out, they were weak and powerless. The head was obscured in the shadows. All in all, it was no more than a lump of twisted organs. Oh, God. This was its true form. I immediately resealed the pot and said, I see. Once he heard that there were those who would search for pregnant women who hadn't yet reached term. Oh, they would cruelly cut out the children from the women's wombs, transforming the fetus into little demons to perform spells, urging them to do harm, either to protect the caster or for protection of a dwelling and luck. The fetus spirit was no doubt the product of such an evil spell. Its mother might have very well have been Xie Lian's worshipper once, otherwise there wouldn't be his protection charm tucked in the clothes of that child yet born. That fetus spirit was captured by you, but would San Long mind if I take it back with me to investigate? I've already bumped into it once before at Mount Yujun. This is the second time its appearance before me. I don't know if it's mere coincidence or some kind of connection. If you want to take it, then just take it. Even if I didn't appear, you would have still captured it. Be as it may, San Long still caught it so effortlessly, much more so than if I were to try. Was that right? And if I didn't appear, how did you plan on capturing it? Eat it in your stomach and then swallow the sword too? Aha, there wasn't any trace of displeasure on Hua Chong's face, but Xie Lian somehow felt that Hua Chong was a little mad. Instincts told him if he didn't answer right, Hua Chong would become angrier. Just as he was thinking of response, he felt his stomach shrink slightly and without thinking said, I'm a little hungry. They're such a couple. Like, he's like, oh, are you mad at me? Like, what if we had food and talked about it? You know? It was only after the words had left his lips he realized what he had said. He was too embarrassed to see the reaction on Hua Chong's face. This time it's true. And Hua Chong laughed out loud. Once he laughed, it was as if all of Xie Lian's gloomy clouds dispersed, and he sighed a breath of relief. Hua Chong, on the other hand, was half laughing, half sighing, and nodded his head. All right. Hua Chong had wanted to keep him and set out a feast at Paradise Manor, but when Xie Lian had heard set out a feast, he knew it would be too big of a deal, and he suggested instead the two of them go on a stroll and find something to eat. I love this. I love that Hua Chong was going to make him the biggest banquet, and Xie Lian's like, I'm kind of just like a peckish eater. Do you want to just go get some takeout instead? These guys are so domestic, and they don't even know that they're domestic. Stop. It was quite warm within Paradise Manor, and while the two entered dripping wet, they were both dried soon after. It's just like a self-drying system in Paradise Manor. There's just like hair dryers blowing down the hallways on them. His dress of women's attire was awfully conspicuous, so he borrowed a set of clothes from Hua Chong. Oh, changing back into clean white robes. Hua Chong having anything white in his wardrobe, he was waiting on Xie Lian to come visit him. He's like, I gotta have some white clothes set out for him. The two set out. Even after having walked for quite a distance, the wailing of that fetus spirit could still be heard, and the cries of Mom ringing in the air, demonstrating its dogged tenacity. There were already howls and wails of demons and ghosts all over the ghost city. Its cries were drowned within, not the least bit noticeable. That's funny. So they go out there and nobody notices the cries of the fetus spirit because it's just so loud there anyway. I guess if you were trying to talk, this would be the place to go because it wouldn't be very suspicious. The main street of the ghost city was bustling as always, and on either side of the street were stalls selling exotic foods. Although the demons and ghosts remained the same ones, their attitudes towards Xie Lian were completely different from last time. Hua Chong walks next to him, shoulder to shoulder, and the bizarre-looking stall owners all came out to greet them with smiles, fighting each other to welcome them into their abode, bowing almost halfway. It reminded Xie Lian of a random idiom, the fox assuming the power of the tiger. Note, the fox assuming the power of the tiger, one who is weak appearing to be strong only because they're next to someone powerful. Other than paying respects to Hua Chong, there were hundreds and thousands of eyes watching Xie Lian with heat as if judging and conjecturing. Just who was he to be able to walk shoulder to shoulder with the lord of the ghost city? This made Xie Lian wonder if maybe he had made another wrong decision. I've made a huge mistake. To be positioned in the flowing current of monsters and demons before the eyes of millions, Hua Chong seemed to be quite at home. What do you want to eat? Finally seeing a stall that was selling something that wasn't that weird, Xie Lian wanted to end things quickly. Oh, this one's fine. But Hua Chong said, no, not this one. Oh, why? Hua Chong didn't say a word, but gestured before him to look inside. Xie Lian took a look, and when the stall owner saw them stopping before him, he rubbed his hands in excitement, as if waiting to welcome them in, nervously wiping the tables, chairs, and benches vigorously. However, what he was using to clean the furniture was his tongue. Oh, no, good call. Good call. Oh, although the bowls and cutleries were dripping with shimmering beads of water after having been licked by that wide and long tongue reflecting a shine that made them look brand new, Xie Lian decided to abandon the stall and hurried away. He saw another stall, a chicken soup shop, that appeared cleanly put together. The sign in front of the door said, home-raised chicken, slow-cooked broth, made fresh, guaranteed clean. Oh, chicken soup, how about a bowl? Not this one either. Is it a problem with the plates or with the chicken? Hua Chong brought him to the shop, pulled aside the curtains, and gestured for Xie Lian to look. Curious, Xie Lian poked his head in and immediately became speechless. Inside the kitchen was an enormous pot, a fire roaring between it, and steam rolled out. Inside the pot was a large man with a bright red coxcomb on his head, and he was simmering in the boiling waters, taking a bath. Next to the pot were many buckets containing salt, pepper, and herbs. Oh my God, he's just like, oh. He just poured stuff on him and then screamed cock-a-doodle-doo. Oh my God, what? Nope, Xie Lian's like, wow, you really don't. Xie Lian's cooking is great in comparison to this. Oh my God. After making a large round, the two finally found a shop, its specialty being authentic delicacies of the mortal realm. Although Xie Lian was suspicious of just how authentic it was. For example, as far as he knew, mortal chefs wouldn't use meats of large, hard-to-hunt monsters to make skewers. Nonetheless, in comparison, this shop was the most normal. Oh. That hog butcher carried with him a thick, white human leg, slapping it soundly. My lord, do you want fresh thighs? This just came in. Oh. Get out of here. You think the Lord's friend would eat that shit? You taking him for the green ghost? Oh, maybe your own thighs would be more edible. Oh, so they know Xie Lian is a cannibal. What a strong stench of blood. You're disgusting people. If my lords and my lord's friend like it, oh, my old leg is nothing. I'll butcher it. Let me tell you, meat on my old flesh is definitely full of flavor. Xie Lian couldn't help but smile, and he ate his porridge with his head down. Hua Chong ignored them pointedly, so that the crowd of ghosts and demons fervently tried to push their goods onto Xie Lian, blabbering, "Street food specialty, brain juice, brains of monsters specially picked, each one with cultivation over 50 years. It smells delicious, smell this delicious fragrant, my good sir. This duck blood pudding is really good, quack. Oh no, it's a duck. Oh, it's cut freshly from my own flesh. Oh, our fruits are authentic fresh fruits from graveyards. If it ain't grown on dead bodies, we won't even pick it. Oh my God." Mountains and mountains of food were given, so much that Xie Lian was having trouble seeing all of it. He thanked them endlessly. He didn't want to put down a wave of fervent affection, but at the same time, so many of these exotic street foods were really hard to accept. In the mess of things, he saw Hua Chong sitting there, his hand supporting his cheek, watching him with a big smile. "Oh, so long." "There's no need to mind them, Gege. They're only overly excited because there's a guest." "Oh, my lord, don't say that. It ain't like we get excited over just anybody. If the lord is our granddaddy, then Lord's Gege is our grand uncle." There's a note there. A note says, "The Chinese have a very strict hierarchy by age, and addressing another by title older than one's own generation is meant as a form of respect, since one is lowering one's own status. The ghosts here are saying that whatever in order to please Hua Chong and his friend. It has nothing to do with Hua Chong's actual age. Conversely, Xie Lian addressing him as this ancestor is him shamelessly raising his own self-importance." Oh, okay. Gotcha. We got to get excited when Grand Uncle comes around. Xie Lian didn't know whether to laugh or cry, wondering whatever the heck they were saying. "Stop that nonsense. Shut up." "Oh, yes, sir, my lord is absolutely correct. We're shutting up. It's not Grand Uncle." Just then, unexpectedly, a few of the female ghosts who'd been giggling on the side finally couldn't hold back anymore and called out, "Oh, hey, weren't you that Daozhong Gege who told Long Chong that he couldn't get it up?" Oh, he almost spat out his mouthful of porridge on the spot. It was like that crowd of ghosts had discovered a major secret. "Holy shit, you're right! It's him! Long Chong was going around telling everyone!" The smarter ghosts were hastily smothering their mouths of those chattering ghosts. However, Hua Chong had no doubt heard. Xie Lian peeked up and saw Hua Chong cocking an eyebrow, watching him with an unreadable eye, as if trying to make sense of what "get it up" had to do with Xie Lian. Originally, that was the excuse Xie Lian had used when that female ghost had been clinging to him, and even though he had been made fun of by the crowd at that time, he could face it like it was nothing. Yet now that it had been thrust in front of Hua Chong, Xie Lian couldn't endure it, wishing desperately he could just choke himself to death with a mouthful of porridge. Hua Chong seemed to be waiting patiently for him to continue, but how could something like this be possibly explained? Was he really going to argue with a straight face that he was not, in fact, impotent? "I'm full." That wasn't a lie. He really was full, so he stood up immediately and hurried out of the stall. The crowd of ghosts carried on mountains of delicacies and exotic dishes, howling nonstop. "Oh, my lord, you're not going to eat any more." "Scram! Oh, my God." And they scrammed again. Oh, Xie Lian was walking randomly, but seeing that those ghosts and demons didn't follow, he slowed his pace to wait for Hua Chong. It didn't take long before Hua Chong came forward with his hands clasped behind him, speaking in a serious voice. "I hadn't known Gege had such an unspeakable affliction." "I don't!" "So long." This is amazing, this date gone wrong. "Very well, San Long understands. I won't speak another word on the subject." He put on a face of one extremely good and obedient, but he was obviously faking it. "You're so insincere." "I promise you will not find another person who is more sincere than me in the world." Hearing that familiar response, Xie Lian laughed too. "Okay, here we go." A moment later, he asked in a sobering voice, "San Long, do you know where Chandong Temple is?" Oh my God, this is like such a date. It's so cute. This is so cute. Okay, all right. One more chapter. "To compose in Nuit Blanche, fragrance added by red sleeves." What? Fragrance added by red sleeves is a verse that described the luxury of a happy marriage, as red sleeves symbolized a bride, and adding fragrance just depicted a scholar studying with the accompaniment of a beautiful woman. MXTX was using the verse as a pun. Xie Lian actually already kind of knew the answer to this question. However, Hua Chang's reaction was largely different from what he expected. After a moment of silence, Hua Chang suddenly blurted, "I'm sorry." What? At first, he had thought that if Chandong Temple was some kind of joke, then the one who would have had the most connection to it could only have been Hua Chang. But no matter how off he might be with his guests, there was no reason for Hua Chang to apologize. Hua Chang didn't respond and only gestured for him to keep walking onwards with him. And so Xie Lian followed his lead. The two walked for a while, and after making a turn, the sight before him opened to a broad horizon. A bedazzling, transcendent temple quietly appeared before Xie Lian's eyes. In an instant, his breathing stopped. All around was the smoky dark and vivid crimson scenery of the ghost realm. Yet surrounded by such an ominous backdrop stood that temple, beautiful beyond words, its thousands of lights enchanting like that of paradise. That a temple with brilliance and enlightenment as its core would sit within the rowdy, chaotic pandemonium, the likes of the ghost city. It was opposingly conspicuous, yet awe-inspiring. The moment it had been seen, it would leave an unerasable deep impression. This. The two stood before the temple, and Xie Lian raised his head to look. Hua Chang also lifted his head slightly and explained. It was the Mid-Autumn Festival a few days ago, and I figured Gege would probably join them in their annual boring games. So I set this place up to give Gege some amusement while attending the banquet, to make things interesting and relieve your boredom. He just made a palace just to do this, just for kicks and giggles. His way of making things interesting was rather too shocking. For the sake of Xie Lian's amusement, he built a temple and raised 3,000 blessing lanterns of everlasting light. Hua Chang lowered his head and fixed his sleeves and added, I hadn't wanted you to know because I set this up on a whim. I built Gege's temple in such a chaotic place. I pray Gege isn't offended. Xie Lian immediately shook his head. Hua Chang actually thought he was giving Xie Lian trouble, so he didn't want him to know. Xie Lian really didn't know what to say. At this point, to say his thanks again would fall flat, and thus Xie Lian stayed himself, sucked in a deep breath, and proceeded to admire this Changdong temple attentively. A moment later, he inclined his head and asked, This temple is gloriously magnificent. The artistry and craftsmanship in its build is divine. It could not have been constructed in mere days. San Long, you didn't just build this recently, did you? Of course not. Gege has a good eye. This was built a long time ago. I never found a use for it, so I had it hidden. And there's been no one who's been allowed in before. I'll have to thank Gege for finally giving it a purpose and have it see the light of day. If it was built a long time ago but never had a use and had other intent at the beginning, then it was only adopted out of convenience. If Hua Chang really had constructed a temple just for him, he would have felt even more uncomfortable. Well, of course, with Hua Chang's personality, it could very well have been built out of pure entertainment. Although Xie Lian was really curious as to why Hua Chang would construct a building that was so completely different from the rest of the ghost city, still Xie Lian held back the impulse to ask. Oh, honey, it wasn't a good habit to pry too much, so who knows if one would step on a mine. Well, want to go in and take a look? Of course. Just go into this temple alone, huh? Side by side, the two entered the temple leisurely, strolling through the path paved by jaded stones. Looking around, the interior of the temple was wide and open, but it didn't have a divine statue nor cushions used for worshippers to kneel, because that's not what he wanted. This was built in a hurry, so if there's anything amiss, I pray Gege won't mind. Not at all. This is very nice, very, very nice. It's good that there isn't an idol or any cushions. Best if there won't be any. But how come there's no establishment plaque either? This wasn't a criticizing question, only within the temple, even the jaded stones that paved the paths had been delicately engraved with the words Chandong Temple, and only the establishment plaque above the entrance was missing. So naturally, it couldn't just be a simple oversight, which was why he was curious. Hua Chang chuckled. It couldn't be helped. There's not really anyone here who can write. Look at the crowd earlier. It'd have already been impressive if they could recognize letters. Does Gege like any particular calligraphy professors? I'll invite them over to help compose for the plaque. Or the best solution, in my opinion, is if Gege himself should draw upon a sign and hang it here at the Cheongdong Temple. That might be even more amazing. He's been waiting to bring him here for how long to do this? Come on! As he spoke, he pointed to the altar in the great hall. That jaded bureau was exceedingly long and wide, orderly decorated. Upon there were various offerings and an incense burner. There were even brushes, inkwells, and paper, a refreshing flavor of scholarship. Then how about Song Long compose one for me? Hearing this, Hua Chong's eyes slightly widened, as if not expecting him to say that. Me? Yeah. You really want me to write? Song Long, is there something wrong? Oh, nothing's wrong. It's just... All right. It's just I don't write well. Well, this was something new. Xie Lian really couldn't imagine there was anything Hua Chong couldn't do well. Oh, really? Write something and show me. You really want me to write? He took out a few sheets of blank paper and laid them out neatly upon the jaded bureau and attentively flattened them, and then he picked out a fine-looking purple brush and put it in his hand. Come. Seeing that he had everything prepared, Hua Chong said, all right, fine, but don't laugh. But of course. Thus, Hua Chong took the brush and started writing, assuming an air of seriousness. Xie Lian watched, standing next to him, but the more he watched, the more his faces changed colors. He really wanted to hold it in, but he couldn't do it. Hua Chong, while drawing madness, writing recklessly on that paper, chided half warningly, half jokingly, Gege. Oh, you schooled this expression, my bad! Oh my god, he didn't want to, but what could he do? Hua Chong's writing was just too funny. In all the history of crazed writing Xie Lian had ever seen, none had ever held a torch halfway to Hua Chong's wild brushwork. Within the wildness carried a malevolent whirlwind and the air of evil. If any calligraphy professors were to see this, they'd probably roll their eyes back and perish on the spot. It took a long time, and it was with immense difficulty before Xie Lian could make out the sea, waters, the peak, clouds, and other such devilish characters, and guessed Hua Chong must be writing, no water is enough when you've crossed the sea. No cloud is beautiful but that which crowns the peak. Thinking of how Hua Chong dominated the ghost realm, feared by all the heavens and hell, finally showed such an expression on something, and when he wrote it with such verses, Xie Lian was going to burst his gut holding in his laughter. He picked up with both hands the end product. Hua Chong completed with but one swing of his hand and forcibly pretended to be calm. Good. It's got such personality, a great sense of unity. It's got style. Oh, an arc of separation from my wife. No water is enough when you cross the sea. No cloud is beautiful, but which crowns the peak. I passed by flowers that failed to attract poor me. Half for your sake and half for Taoism I seek. This was a poem written by the Tang poet Yan Jin, expressing his undying love and devotion to his dead wife. After seeing the vast sea, his wife, other bodies of water could no longer compare. After removing the clouds and mists of Mount Wu, his wife, no other landscapes could compare. Walking through the bushes of flowers, other women, his mind is only focused on cultivation and his wife. The first two verses are currently used to express the nostalgia of having something good and beautiful, and the loneliness of having nothing else that can compare thereafter. Oh, Hua Chong. Oh, Hua Chong. Hua Chong placed the brush back, looked poised and proper, with a squinted smile. Madness, you mean? Xie Lian pretended not to hear and started commenting with an air of seriousness. In truth, it's not hard to write well. It's writing with style that's difficult. If it was only to look good, but looked exactly the same as thousands of others, then it'd still be nothing more than common. San Long has a good foundation, the talent of profession, the force to swallow mountains. There were two other idioms that followed: broken landscapes, ruined armies. It couldn't be helped. Making it praise was also quite hard. Hua Chong stood there, and the more he listened, the higher his brows raised. Really? When have I ever lied to San Long? Hua Chong calmly and lazily added a few incense blocks to the small golden vessel on the side, and in the midst of fresh, faint fragrance, he conversed with an air of nonchalance. I do want to write well, but there's no one to teach me, and I don't know if there are any tricks to it. You are so smooth! Oh my God! You, sir. He certainly asked the right person. Xie Lian hummed and replied, well, there's really no trick to it. Just Xie Lian contemplated, but felt that in the end, he couldn't just tell and not show. So he shuffled closer. Shut up! Shuffled closer, picking up the brush himself, and wrote down the last 2 verses of the poem Hua Chong had written. It was all done in one breath, and after staring at it for a moment, he laughed with a sigh. Much ashamed, I haven't had much chance to write in many years, so it's not as good anymore. Hua Chong stared at the 4 verses that looked as different as heaven and hell, the characters with styles foreign to each other, especially the 2 last verses Xie Lian added. Crossing through blossoms, the eye is lazy. Half fate in cultivation, half fate in the one. He put the verses together and read them over a few times, his eye twinkling and unmoving. It was a moment before he looked up. Teach me? Well, I daren't lecture, Xie Lian said. Thus he began to tell Hua Chong about all the introductions to calligraphy without holding back, providing insights and personal reflections of when he practiced calligraphy in his younger years. The perfumed air wafted gently, the bright lights shimmering. Xie Lian lectured earnestly, and Hua Chong listened intently. Within the great hall, they chattered lightly and leisurely, their voices low, painting a picture of softness. After a while, Xie Lian prompted, "Why don't you try again?" Hua Chong, "Oh," and then took the brush from his hand and composed himself solemnly before writing down another few characters. Xie Lian stood next to him and watched, crossing his arms and inclined his head. Well, interesting, but he still felt there was something wrong with the way Hua Chong wrote. He observed with a frown for a bit, and suddenly realized where it went wrong. Hua Chong wasn't holding the brush in the right in the first place. Even the way he held the brush was all over the place. Of course it'd go wrong. Xie Lian didn't know whether to laugh or cry and stood closer, extending his hand to correct him without thinking. "You're holding it wrong. It's like this. Oh, shut up. No. It was only when he reached out did he suddenly realize it might be inappropriate. The 2 weren't teacher and young disciple, so to instruct with his hand over hand might be overly familiar. However, since the hand was already out, there was no reason to pull back. It'd only seem overly self-conscious otherwise. Thus, after some hesitation, Xie Lian didn't remove his hand. Then he thought, the last time at the gambler's den, didn't Hua Chong teach him how to roll dice with his hands over hands like this too? Although Xie Lian felt he had learned absolutely nothing last time, and there was even a slight sense that he'd been deceived somehow, this time he was sincere in wanting to teach Hua Chong something. Thus, Xie Lian's warm palm was at ease, pressing close against Hua Chong's cold hand. Gently holding it, and carried it to guide the brush across the paper, whispering, like this. He could feel under his hand Hua Chong's brush growing wilder, so he exerted some force to control it, correcting its path. However, it didn't take long before it went even more off course, resisting the control so he could only grasp it tighter. The characters drawn through the power of the 2 combined were crooked and twisted, unseemly and ugly, and the more Xie Lian guided, the more he felt something was off. Finally, he couldn't help but gape. What? As if his silly prank was a success. Hua Chong snickered softly. The ink on the paper was chaotically tyrannical, and Xie Lian was exasperated. "San Long, don't be like this. Learn properly. Write properly." "Oh." Just one look and it was obvious he was only pretending to be serious. Xie Lian shook his head, feeling ridiculous. Hua Chong's hand might have been cold, but in his grasp, for some reason, it felt like a lump of hot coal. And Xie Lian didn't dare to hold on any tighter. Just then Xie Lian's eyes suddenly swept to the edge of the altar and stopped. When he looked over at the corner of the jaded bureau, there was a tiny, lonesome flower. "Oh, no! No! Oh, no! That's no! That can't be! No, damn it! No! Why? Why? Just, Well, It is the month of love, and I'm glad we're on these chapters. So I didn't really see a need to bring whiteboard out because these chapters were fairly straightforward and fairly romantic and fairly, it's about damn time. No, listen. I know we got 8 volumes of this and we're only on volume 3. And so, and MXTX, I'm surprised we're getting this much this soon, if I'm being quite honest, because even though Modao Zushi in comparison with this, it's funny. It's hard to compare because they really are apples and oranges. They're very, very different stories, right? I feel like Modao Zushi is much more, but Wei Wuxian and Lan Wangji are much more kinkier and explicit about their love, right? It's interesting. Without spoiling it, I'm sure most readers have probably read Modao Zushi if they're reading this. But if you haven't, it's curious because it's like MXTX. There are bits and pieces of Wei Wuxian that I can see in both Hua Chong and Xie Lian, and there's bits and pieces of Lan Wangji, more Lan Wangji and Hua Chong than Xie Lian, but you can kind of get a little bit here and there. But in that story, like, Wei Wuxian was totally infatuated from day one and just didn't quite realize it. And then when he realized it, he was like, oh, I was having a crisis. And Xie Lian's so pure. That's the thing. Wei Wuxian was not really pure. that was more Lan Wangji's thing. But Xie Lian's so pure and innocent, and he's been, abstinent this whole thing. But the thing about it is, I think that from the get-go, like ever since Land of the Tinder, it's been quite clear that Hua Chong is not into the ladies, has no use for the ladies. Wei Wuxian was like bisexual. Like, he was into the lady ghosts and into the other ladies and kind of like gallivanting around with girls, but then also Lan Wangji was like his one true love. So Wei Wuxian's like bisexual king. Lan Wangji was very much like, nope, just Wei Wuxian. Like demisexual, like not even into anybody else. No other guys, nothing. And I almost feel like Hua Chong and Xie Lian are kind of like demisexual for each other. Like everybody else, nope. Not even in the picture, not even being thought about. It's literally these two and themselves, which is fine. It's like, it's a beautiful thing in a romance. It's like MXTX crafting an OTP for their story. Because the thing of it is, when you have a romance, oftentimes they put in that like love triangle or something to get the significant others, the partners, to realize, oh no, I really am just for you. I love that MXTX doesn't bother with that bull crap. MXTX is like, love triangle? Like, way back at the beginning of the story, I was debating about Junwoo being in the love triangle. And here's the deal. If I'm being honest, at this point in the story, I think Junwoo has a thing for Xie Lian? Mm-hmm. Yes, I do. I think Junwoo very much has a thing for Xie Lian. Do I think Xie Lian has a thing for Junwoo? Nope. I think Xie Lian is oblivious to Junwoo having anything for Xie Lian, and Xie Lian just views Junwoo like with respect. Like, oh, you're the martial heavenly emperor. Of course I respect you. Of course I envy you for having to do this really incredibly hard job. I feel like Xie Lian respects Junwoo because, as we find out in these flashback chapters, he realizes how hard it is to be a leader in these situations, and Junwoo has to run all of the heavenly realms. So I feel like Xie Lian, he admires and has respect for Junwoo, but like a father figure, right? Whereas I still think Junwoo is kind of like, I still think Junwoo would like slide under the table and try to swoop Xie Lian away if he could, but I also think Junwoo is kind of understanding how naive about anything romantic Xie Lian is, so he thinks that there's nothing wrong with, Xie Lian not getting his affection. It's fine. Now the question is, with this whole introduction of the Banyu skits, and if Junwoo starts to see that maybe Hua Chong has affection towards Xie Lian, is that going to change things? I don't know. The funny thing about all of this, the funny thing about these chapters, and the idea of Hua Chong taking Xie Lian on this date, and we'll talk about that, is that the ghosts, is how the ghosts and the heavenly officials react to this situation, right? The heavenly officials were like, oh, Xie Lian with being affectionate towards Hua Chong, well, this must be made up. Like, what a scandal. Like, like clutching their pearls, like a supreme ghost and a heavenly official could never work, And then you have the ghosts who, like, don't even care if Xie Lian's a heavenly official. They're just amazed that Hua Chong is with someone, and they're, like, trying to, like, dote on him hand and foot and shove food in his face and treat him. And they don't treat him poorly. They're just like, oh, how did you get so close to the heavenly supreme emperor? And it's just like, It's a very different reaction. And I kind of feel why Xie Lian would feel more comfortable, oddly enough, at the Ghost City. One, because his cooking looks great by comparison. But two, the Ghost City just kind of seems like this lively, like you never know what you're gonna see, and it's kind of like it's a seedy underbelly, but they're like, it's kind of fun, right? Whereas the Heavenly realm just seems like a boring tea party with a bunch of hoity-toity 1%ers. And Xie Lian's just like, that's not me at all, right? He'd rather get down and dirty with the ghosts than he would be to rub elbows with these fake individuals, right? As Shi Ching Chan would say. So, why Borkun, I don't think needs to come out, but I do want to go through these chapters because, man, MXTX, what are we doing? I do have one thing I am a little confused about going into these chapters. And when I stopped the reaction, I went back, one, to see the pictures. We get two. I'm so excited. But also, because I want to confirm something, and it's not really confirmed. So I have two schools of thought here. One school of thought, did we ever come out of the dream? I was looking back to the chapter, I was like, wait a minute, did we come out of this dream? Did we wake up? Did you run my lamp? Did you wake me up? Like, I was like, wait, what's happening? So I have two theories, but I don't know which is correct. And I will say this, here's my caveat. If it's gonna be revealed in the next chapter set, don't tell me the answer to this question. I might ask Discord as a disclaimer. If it's going to be revealed in the next chapter set, don't answer this question for me. But if not, are we still in the dream? Because that was my big question, because we were in the dream in the last chapter. He was sitting up on the ledge of the window. The window opened up on its own, and there was the lake, and there was the house with Goosey and Long Ying in it, which, where's them kids? Who knows? Who cares? Papa's on a date. Leave me alone. I thought about that this whole time reading. I was like, Xie Lian, this is cool that you're having a date with Hua Chong. Really cool. It's great that you're going back and having these private calligraphy lessons. Really cool. But you have a kid and someone else's kid and your cousin tied up somewhere. Should you maybe go check on that? And then come back here? So part of me was like, is this still the dream? Are we still in the dream still yet? Because he goes back to Paradise Manor and it's automatically built. So it would make sense if it's still the dream, because that seems kind of unlikely, right? But then, like, this is a pretty long Inception style dream. So either it's this big ass long dream and that's why Xie Lian's not worried about the kids, or when he went into the lake, did he wake up and just woke up in the lake instead of back at the house? But how does that work? How do he transport? Was he sleepwalking? And then when he fell in the lake, he was still in the dream, but when Hua Chong transported him out of the lake back to Paradise Manor, did he wake up then? The thing that makes the most sense is that this is still a dream and he hasn't woken up yet, but it's the longest ass dream in a long time. Wait, what? I'm going to ask Discord. I'm going to ask Discord if they can tell me if we're still having a dream or not. Because maybe, I'm hesitant though, because a part of me is like, maybe he's going to wake up in the next chapter set. Maybe this is the longest dream in the world, and MXTX is going to have us in a dream for the rest of the novel, because we have that much left. So I'm like, surely he's going to wake up between now and then. Maybe. I don't know. I'm going to ask Discord about it. So as of right now, I'm not sure if we're still in the dream or not. I don't know. I don't know if I want to know. It depends on if it's a plot point in the future and it's like suddenly Xie Lian woke up, I'll be like, okay, I don't want to know. But if it's something that I should have gotten and I somehow missed it, I don't know. I went back and reread the last chapter set and was like, I feel like we've not woken up yet. We're still in the dream. So, which I guess cool. You were still in the dream, but so bizarre. So bizarre. But yeah, so let's talk about this kiss. This is a dream, the dream kiss, right? Or maybe it's not a dream kiss. We do get a picture of it, though. Oh, y'all, I'm so pleased as punch. I was like, if they don't give us a damn picture, I'm going to be mad. Oh, it's glorious. Look at that shit. Look at that. Look at that business. Look at that. They get all that in its glory. That is some fine illustration, my friend. That feels good. Yeah, so Xie Lian's first kiss. And the thing about it is that Xie Lian, at first, he tries to get away until he realizes it's Hua Chong. The moment that he realizes it's Hua Chong, he's like, well, okay. He is totally fine with it then. But then he stops struggling and he's like, oh, and then he's like, as he's kissing Hua Chong, he's like, wait, so, well, that explains why he was cold. But can ghosts breathe? Can they give air to me? Do they sink in water? And then Hua Chong opens his eyes, and Xie Lian realizes what's happening again. He gets jolted back to reality, and he's like, oh, crud, and they go back up to the surface of the lake. Still in the dream, mind you, still in the dream, correct? And then the water in the air is cold and freezing, but his whole body was burning up. So I don't know if at that moment, when they snap out of the water, they're out of the dream, or if they're still in the dream. Don't know. But I do love the idea that all of these butterflies come out of nowhere. These millions of silver butterflies break through the water like glass, like bullets, and cover the spirit, the child spirit, and trap it like Ghostbuster style trap it. I like that. I like that. I'd love to see the Dongwha. I don't know how the Dongwha will do the kiss, especially since the Chinese government believed that gay men kissing is the end of the world. But I do think it's rather interesting that we could get like this beautiful picture of all these silver butterflies like entrapping the spirit. Because it makes sense. Hua Chong's the supreme ghost. This fetus spirit ain't nothing, right? Nothing to shake a fist at. Although, we're going to talk about that fetus spirit because there's something to it that is adding to the mystery that we don't know about yet. But yeah, Xie Lian is just completely overwhelmed, doesn't know what to do. And then the child spirit, I love that as it's flying away, it's like, Mom. I feel like Cartman off South Park. Mom. Oh my God, if we could just have, I need an edit of someone drawing the child spirit and it has Cartman's voice from South Park. Mom. Just... That would be amazing. I may edit that if I ever get time to draw like a little sketch with that. Oh my God, that would be hilarious. But yeah, Hua Chong, the idea of him like with his arm wrapped around Xie Lian and holding him close and not even looking up, like just the trust he has in his butterflies that it's going to be fine. And then they dive back into the water. Now, he tosses the dice underwater, which is how he got there in the first place. And the dice lead to Xie Lian, and then they go through the surface. So the question is, I guess they're still in the dream, which is why Xie Lian's not worried about Guzi or San Long. I guess they're still in this dream. It's like damn Inception. It just keeps going, right? And I love this. I like the meta joke of Xie Lian being like, well, it's only been a few days since we last saw each other, but it felt like a long time. It felt like most of a book, because we had this giant flashback. And it has been a while since we've seen Hua Chong. But I love that they spend this whole paragraph with Xie Lian seeming like he seems older compared to the last time I saw him. He's aged a little bit. His face has always been handsome. His locks were black, and he has the thin, small braid with the red string intricately strung through it, kind of like the red string of fate. Mm-hmm. And then I never thought of Hua Chong as having like a slight widow's peak. I usually don't think widow's peaks are attractive, but I guess Xie Lian's into that thing, so okay. But maybe it's not like a big... I'm thinking like Vegeta off Dragon Ball Z when I think of widow's peaks. I'm guessing it's maybe not that bad. But he does have the black eye patch. They said the word eyes a lot in this translation, so at first I wasn't sure if he looked like San Long, even though that's what Xie Lian always calls him, but he does have the black eye patch, covering an eye that emitted traces of a killing aura. But then he says it softened that refined charm, making his good looks a perfect balance. It's like he's just got a bad boy edge. He's just got just enough of a bad boy in him that Xie Lian's like, I am into this. And then poor Xie Lian. Like, I just think of Velma off Scooby-Doo where Xie Lian's like, my bamboo hat. Where's my bamboo hat? Where's my glasses? Like, he's just like, I'm just imagining, like, the comedic effect of Xie Lian just rummaging on the ground trying to find his hat, and Hua Chong's like, yeah, I'm sorry about this. Yeah. And Xie Lian saying, I'm hungry. No, I'm sleepy. I don't know what to say. And then him say, like, Hua Chong being vulnerable and apologizing in this chapter. Like, him actually saying he's sorry to Xie Lian for kissing him. Like, oh, did I mess up? And it's like, And the thing about it is, I think Xie Lian was fine with the kiss, and that's what's so shocking to him, is that his first kiss ever, and he was like, I didn't know what to do, and I'm just kind of like, XieLian.exe has stopped working, right? And he just says he's going to leave. But Hua Chong, I love that MXTX says that the cry was like a cry for help. And Hua Chong's like, no, your foot's bleeding. You're in trouble. And Xie Lian's like, okay, oh no, it's fine. It's great. We're all good. And he's like, nope. And he just lifts him up like, no, I got this. And then they arrive on the shore and they're at the ghost city, right? And all these, I like that these ghosts sound like they have like a Kansai Ben Japanese accent. You got your lordship, like all this, like just the yurs and yas and blimeys. Like, it's great. They're the ghost city. And I love that the line, Xie Lian let out a wail in his head. Like, Xie Lian was internally screaming. It's like, no! Like, we're back at the ghost city. They all know me. I just imagine the Cheers song plays when, as Hua Chong's carrying Xie Lian, it's like, doon, 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 doon. Sometimes you want to go where every ghost knows your name. I need this. There's so many references in these chapters that I need them to be real. So yeah, they go back to the ghost city. And of course, the ghosts recognize Hua Chong because he's the supreme ghost, but they also know Xie Lian. Now, again, to separate that this is the ghost city and it's not just all friendly neighborhood ghosts that are just happy to see ya, they ask Hua Chong if he's trying to rape Xie Lian and offer to help him. And Hua Chong just says, scram. He says scram a few times, like get out, leave, you're embarrassing me. And they do, which is, Xie Lian's just like, what do I do? And then he just carries Hua Chong like in his arms as he's still dressed in women's clothing towards the Paradise Manor that's been rebuilt. I'm assuming this is still a dream, right? Assuming it's still a dream. So, and that's when Xie Lian says, I'm sorry, I just sort of lost it right now. How embarrassing. And so what really happened was just too great of a shocking blow. And the word blow was harsh, but this was his first time after all. And interestingly enough, this is when Xie Lian kind of has this coming to terms about his sexuality, because he's like, I've had many, naked women try to tempt me, but I've never reacted this embarrassingly before. But even he doesn't know what to think of it. Like, Xie Lian doesn't even know how he sexually feels about anything. He doesn't know what to do with his emotions at this point. He's like, I kissed a supreme ghost. I kind of liked it. But this has never happened before. Would it be the same way if it had been one of those lady ghosts? I don't know. And then I like how he blames the Goshi, being like, well, the Goshi only ever taught me how to handle women, not men that had advances. And it's like, he's like, well, I just didn't have any experience. I didn't know how to react. I'm like, Xie Lian, honey, come on. And so he does feel slightly embarrassed because he thinks that he overreacted. And he's like, he thinks that San Long meant well, trying to help him keep the ghost away from his mouth. And he thinks he was being impolite. But then Hua Chong, he apologizes again, saying that he was in the wrong. So in San Long, there's a part of it that goes back to that land of the tinder where Hua Chong as a kid was kind of like Xie Lian, didn't know anything about, sexual feelings or anything like that. Didn't know how to react. Now he clearly does. And he came to Xie Lian and made the choice to kiss him. Even if it was to save him from the spirit, it was still a choice. He could have put his hand over his mouth, but instead he chose to kiss him instead. So Hua Chong believes he's overstepped, right? And Xie Lian, I like that Xie Lian breathes a sigh of relief and is like, okay, we're on the same page. We both realize that it was just something done in the moment. It doesn't mean anything, so he thinks, and that everything's okay. He's like, I was in dire straits and you were trying to help. Wasn't a big deal. And that's when we bring up the child spirit. I like the Hua Chong replies in this authoritative tone. We have to treat your wounds first. Like he's just trying to be so like big and bad. I love it. Like being all like I'm gonna protect you. I love the reversal that's happening in this story where we just had how many chapters of Xie Lian defending Hua Chong and saving him as a child. And now every time in the present, like whether it was the cart with the oxen where Hua Chong helped them escape, or whether it was in the desert with the snake, or whether it was this, or the butterflies are helping him. Like Hua Chong as an adult has been coming back and repaying Xie Lian's kindness, right? So it's just been a big Uno reverse card. I really like that quite a bit. And so they ask about the child spirit. And then they go back to Paradise Manor that looks exactly as it was before. And so Xie Lian feels too embarrassed to ask about it. And as Hua Chong takes him to the giant divan. And that image, I'm sorry, y'all, but I need to see this. I need Star Amber to draw this right now. Mm-hmm. The idea of Xie Lian strung out on this giant black divan, and then Hua Chong like kneeling on his hands and knees at his feet. I'm like, how? And Xie Lian being like, this seems rather suggestive, and it's like, yes, because Hua Chong would probably do anything at this point for Xie Lian, like anything, and Xie Lian just has no clue to even ask or even think about what to ask, right? And so he manages to go to get the needle out of his foot. And he says, don't hold back, Gege. Cry out if it hurts. If that isn't like foreshadowing that Hua Chong wants Xie Lian to be loud. I don't know. I feel like the floodgate has opened, right? I feel like the dam has a crack in it now. I feel like water is like spurting out of, I don't know what this gesture is. I feel like a tiny crack has emerged in the dam of Xie Lian and Hua Chong's chemistry, and water is slowly like starting to spurt out. And I feel like it's just ready to like burst, but we're not there yet. We're not at that volume yet. I just feel like it's started, right? Like this has been like a door opening, and we're slowly getting like little. It's just like, okay, well that kiss was okay. We're fine. That kiss was fine. All right. Xie Lian's like, okay, I'm getting like a Chris Fleming vibe. If you ever watched the comedian Chris Fleming, he's like, okay, we're doing this. We can branch out. Yeah, we got this. And then Hua Chong gets a little bit bolder, and he's like, well, if I hurt you, make sure to be loud and let me know. And it's like, if that's not a sign of what Hua Chong is expecting in the future, I don't know what it is. And so chapter 96. The mind in disarray, but say not the tender heart is too. And so Xie Lian like shrinks back and he pulls out the needle. And it has like a poison attached to it, which I was like, ugh. But then he like crushes it easily. He's like, oh, forget that. And it dissipates into the air. And so here's the thing about the fetus spirit. The fetus spirit is something mysterious, and it has something attached to it. Because Xie Lian says that a typical fetus spirit should not be this strong. And Hua Chong says, yes, this fetus spirit is not from a normal miscarriage. So that's when the waning moon officer shows up, who we think is a formerly heavenly official, but we can't tell in this chapter. That's the frustrating thing, is he's only here for a hot second. We don't know if it's the waning moon officer because Xie Lian can't see if the wrist shackle is there. His sleeves are tied down fully and completely. So it's like, we can't see anything. And he gives him the clay pot with the fetus spirit in it. And I like MXTX just giving us that extra little douse of horror that it's literally like a little puddle of organs. Like literally a miscarriage in a jar. Lovely. It's like, oof. So the true form of the fetus spirit. And so Xie Lian talks about this really disgusting practice, which, again, we're going back to volume 1, because in volume 1 we had the bride, and in volume 1 we had the brides, that were being sold, the corpses that were being sold to make money off the families, and how disgusting that was. And here we have the idea that men would cut the children from women's wombs and turn them into demons. What the fudge? And have them do evil spells. So the idea is that this fetus spirit was from 800 years ago, right? That's the idea, that this fetus spirit was from 800 years ago. Okay. I made the Pei Ming joke, but that doesn't seem to be one that's feasible now with the timeline. So it's so mysterious, like how this fetus spirit could have any connection to anything, like, because it seemed like it could have been. Xie Lian makes a note that it could have been one of his worshippers. Otherwise, there wouldn't be his protection charm tucked in the clothes of the child yet born. So that's a good question. Like, whose baby was it? It had a powerful spell attached to it. Did Bai Wusheng cast a spell over it? What's the deal? I don't know. It would be really disturbing if it was like some woman that Qi Rong had like an affair with. Again, I can't imagine Qi Rong with anybody, to be honest. So that doesn't seem feasible, but I don't know, right? And so Xie Lian and them, they're thinking about it, and he's like, this is the second time it's bumped before me. And Hua Chong, I was wondering if Hua Chong was going to give him any clues or if he understood why it had bumped into him at Mount Yuzhun. But again, we don't. But Qi Rong was tied to Mount Yuzhun because he had the corpses hanging from the trees. So maybe Qi Rong is behind the fetus spirit. Maybe there's some connection there. Maybe that's why it's attached to Xie Lian, because it's like, what if Qi Rong did get with somebody and they had a miscarriage because they figured out it was his kid and they didn't want to have it? Or it was cursed, or maybe it was some random woman miscarrying and Qi Rong cursed it, and Qi Rong, since he's related to Xie Lian, the curse attached itself to Xie Lian. I don't know, but it seems like it's somebody tied from around the same time that Xie Lian and Qi Rong were around and alive, so I don't know. That's so weird. I'm just filing away the fetus spirit for now because I'm fascinated, and I feel like in this volume we are going to get answers maybe about the fetus spirit. I feel like that's going to be one thing that maybe gets wrapped up this volume. I don't know. MXTX every chapter. If you told me in the last chapter set that Xie Lian was going to get kissed by Hua Chong, I'd been like, what are you talking about? And if you told me in this set of chapters that they would go on a dinner date together and then have a private calligraphy lesson in a temple that Hua Chong made for his man, I'd have said you were crazy, but here we are. So anything's possible, I guess. But it is good to get clarification that Hua Chong did not have anything to do with the fetus spirit that we know of. This is the first time he's kind of hearing about it. But again, Hua Chong lets Xie Lian do whatever he wants. He's like, well, if you want to take it, take it. He's like, you would have captured it anyway. And like Xie Lian's like, oh, shut up, you. I would not have. And Hua Chong's like, yes, you would have. And I'm like, get a room. Which they do. So yeah, and then Hua Chong calls him out. He's like, so tell me, if that spirit had appeared and I wasn't there to help you, you were going to eat it in your stomach and then swallow the sword, weren't you? And I like that Xie Lian notes that Hua Chong doesn't look displeased, but does look a little bit mad. Because yeah, Hua Chong doesn't want him to hurt himself, right? And then Xie Lian kind of diffuses the situation by being like, oh, I'm actually a little hungry. And so he's like, this time it's true. Oh, I just got it now. Earlier when he said this time is true in the reaction, I thought he was meaning like, oh yeah, you were right. I was going to swallow the sword. But no, he was like, I'm a little hungry. This time I'm not lying. Like, oh, that's actually really cute. So he was saying earlier when he said it about the kiss, he was lying. And Hua Chong's just like, here's the thing. When he says once he laughed, it was as if all of Xie Lian's gloomy clouds dispersed and he sighed a breath of relief. Hua Chong, on the other hand, was half laughing, half sighing, and nodded his head, okay. They're so perfect for each other. Because literally, like, he was starting to get a little mad at Xie Lian because Xie Lian was being a little bit self-sacrificing and he doesn't like Xie Lian hurting himself. But then it's like if you have a best friend and you're mad at them for like 5 minutes and then you both look at each other and you're like, that was dumb. Why were we mad? You know, that's exactly what it's like. And that's Xie Lian and him. Like they're so perfect for each other because they got mad for like a hot second and then they got over it. And they were like, you want to go get some food? Okay. Like, so cute. And here's the thing. Hua Chong wants to pamper and spoil Xie Lian. He does. Kind of like Junwoo. Just like Junwoo. Junwoo wanted to give Xie Lian a palace. Hua Chong wants to give him a feast. Right? But Xie Lian's like, I prefer takeout. Let's just go to a restaurant and get something instead. And Hua Chong's like, okay. I mean, if we were in the heavenly realm, we'd find some 5-star restaurants. But here, it's going to be a little sketchy. So I like the idea that they both dry out in the warmth of paradise manner. And they bring the ghost, they bring the jar with him. But it's so like he has the jar. It says, even after walking quite a distance, the wailing of the fetus spirit could still be heard. Oh, okay. Well, they're still in the dream technically, right? But once they get into the ghost city, the loud noises of it kind of just drown everything else out. And so, yeah, Xie Lian walking shoulder to shoulder with Hua Chong, and all the ghosts are like, oh, come to our shop, come to our shop. Like, they all want Hua Chong's patronage because they probably know Hua Chong's going to pay well, and it's that notoriety of, right, of, oh, I served the supreme ghost. And so, Xie Lian, just the idea of the chicken soup, right? He wants to go to he says, not the one. Oh yeah. They go to the first restaurant and the guy is like licking down the chairs and the furniture and everything with his tongue. And Xie Lian's like, yeah, no, I don't want to eat here. and then they go to the second place where this man chicken, this rooster man, is sitting in a big cauldron of water, pouring salt and stuff on himself in the water, singing cock-a-doodle-doo. And Xie Lian's like, nope. I love that he says cock-a-doodle-doo, and Xie Lian drops the curtain and just silently walks out like, let's not go eat there. And so finally, I love that the final place they settle on is authentic delicacies of the mortal realm. Like, it's like a tourist trap, right? It's a tourist trap for the ghosts, where he's like, I don't really think the humans eat the large, hard-to-hunt monster skewers, but this one will work. And he just gets a bowl. And even in this big, giant restaurant with all this fancy stuff that's authenticities in the mortal realm, Xie Lian gets a bowl of porridge. How? He gets a bowl of porridge. It's like Kuroko from Kuroko's Basketball just getting a vanilla shake. Like, you could get anything here, but you get a bowl of porridge? Okay. Which, granted, you can't really mess up porridge, so probably your best bet. And Hua Chong, I don't think he eats anything with Xie Lian because we get a second picture in this set of chapters. We get a second picture, which I was really excited about. It's literally the cutest thing. Let me find it. But it is of them on their dinner date. And it is of Xie Lian. It's so cute. The art style is a little bit different than the other picture. But it's them on their dinner date. And there's the little boar man trying to offer him the thigh, right? And then Hua Chong's just sitting there watching Xie Lian eat the porridge as the other monsters are all around them. It's really cute. It's actually quite adorable that Hua Chong's just so happy to see Xie Lian. He just sits there and stares at him, right? It's cute. But yeah, all these ghosts and monsters are trying to like get him to eat things, right? And they're like a duck's offering him me own flesh that he'll like cook up for him, and like fruits from the graveyard. My favorite was, if it ain't grown on dead bodies, we won't even pick it. It's so twisted and warped and weird, but it's kind of like Spirited Away on acid. It's like if Spirited Away and oh god, the one Alice in Wonderland that's like the horror one, like American Horror Alice in Wonderland, or American McGee's Alice in Wonderland. Yeah, it's like American McGee's Alice in Wonderland met Spirited Away. That's what the Ghost City makes me think of, right? But yeah, all this food presented in front of Xie Lian, and Hua Chong's just sitting there like, I would have had you a feast of perfectly edible food ready, but instead we're here and all these monsters and ghosts are offering you up food that is not edible, so. But Xie Lian's cooking's terrible, so by comparison, Xie Lian's like, no, this is great. So this porridge is awesome. And then he clears his throat and says, San Long. And I like that Hua Chong's like, they're just overly excited because there's someone here with me, that I have a guest. And so they call him, they're like, if you're our granddaddy, then this man is our grand uncle. And Hua Chong is like, tells them to stop that nonsense and to shut up. So they're almost like teasing Hua Chong, being like, oh, you brought around your young friend, huh? And Hua Chong's like, get out of here. And Xie Lian's like, what's going on? It's great. But then they bring up Lan Chong, the woman ghost, from back at the start of volume 2. Like, again, we're full circling it, where Xie Lian said he had an impotence problem and they couldn't get it up. And Xie Lian, like, nearly spits out his porridge and is like, oh my God. And I love that they're like, holy shit, you're right, it's him. And Hua Chong's just like, what did you tell them? And Xie Lian's like, I'm full, bye. I like that Xie Lian, whenever he gets embarrassed and doesn't know what to do and has a panic moment, he's just like, I just need to, I'm gonna head right out. Like, he's like, I gotta go, and just takes off. Like, just Xie Lian, what are you doing, sweetheart? And then the ghosts kind of follow after him, and Hua Chong has to, I like that Hua Chong took a moment back to spare, looked back, and ordered them to scram, and they all leave. I love that Xie Lian's just like, he just walks randomly to get out of the ghost way, but then he slows down and let Hua Chong catch up. And you can just tell Xie Lian's like, oh my God, he knows that I said that, that I made all that up, my lie. And I love that Hua Chong like has his hands behind his back, and he's like, I hadn't known that you had such an affliction. I love that. They tease each other so well. And Xie Lian's like, I don't. He's like, so long. I can just picture him like from the OVA saying it. And he's like, I get it. He's like, I'm not going to question you about the subject. And he's like, you're so insincere. And that's when he brings up, he's like, oh no, I promise you, you won't find another person who is more sincere than me in the world. And then Xie Lian remembered. He remembered that time. So he asks about the Chongdong Temple. And then we get to chapter 97, which is to compose in Nuit Blanche, fragrance added by red sleeves, which is tied to, like, I feel like the red sleeves and the fragrance and stuff ties to the calligraphy and the fact that they have this intimate moment with one another. The luxury of a happy marriage, almost like they're in their honeymoon period, right? These two, like, they're glowing in the bask of young love, perhaps, even though they're both like nearly 1,000 years old. But what I like about this is that Hua Chong says he's sorry, and Xie Lian is confused. And then he realizes that Hua Chong probably thought that Xie Lian didn't want all the lanterns. And he's like, oh, no. He's just like, that's not what I meant. And then he shows him the temple. And the temple's beautiful. Like, I feel like he's had this temple for a while. He's built this temple a long time ago and has maintained it and kept it up. Again, are we in a dream? Are we not in a dream? But I feel like he's kept this temple for a long time. And he's maintained it and been using it. And the way that Xie Lian's like, wow, he just built this random temple and it's just coincidence that I happen to stumble upon it. Look at that. I'm like, Xie Lian, you moron. No, he built this temple for you. It's to worship you. Just Xie Lian, he's so oblivious, right? And then Hua Chong admits that he's like, I figured you were probably joining them in their boring games. So I love that Hua Chong, when he apologizes like this, he's just like, he stirred up so much trouble with the Heavenly Realm. And you know that Hua Chong enjoyed it. You know that he wanted to troll them so hard and to make Xie Lian out to be bigger than Jun Wu. You know that he did, right? But the way that he phrases it here, he's like, I just thought you'd be really bored there. And so, I don't know, I just had this temple lying around and thought I'd just give you some lanterns to make you feel amused and relieve your boredom. I'm like, you're so full of shit. You knew exactly what you were doing. It's like, Hua Chong. And Xie Lian's just kind of like, well, yes, that did make things quite interesting. You going way above and beyond, sir. Yeah, he knows exactly what he's doing. Come on. And he's like, I hadn't wanted you to know. I set this up on a whim. BS. I built this temple in such a chaotic place. I hope you're not offended. And of course, Xie Lian's like, no. He's like, I think that it's really nice that you built this temple for me. And he doesn't know what to do, and he doesn't want Hua Chong to feel bad. So of course he compliments on how nice it is, and then that gets Hua Chong in a good mood. He's like, well, of course. He's like, I never found a use for it, so I had hidden it here. It's like, no, your use for it was that you came here thinking of Xie Lian every night. Let's be real. He's like, it was constructed for a while now. He's like, thanks for giving it purpose and having it see the light of day. I'm like, she's so smooth in this chapter. Like, he sets things up very much so. But Xie Lian gives it right back, right? And so Xie Lian was curious as to why Hua Chong constructed a building so completely different from the rest of the ghost city. And it's like, I can't imagine why, right? I feel like Xie Lian's he's so close to asking Hua Chong. He's so close to figuring it out, right? Xie Lian is so damn close to figuring it out. And Hua Chong, I feel like for Hua Chong, it's not a game, but he doesn't want to give it away to Xie Lian. He wants Xie Lian to figure it out on his own. He's not trying to prod him or pry him, but he's leaving all sorts of breadcrumbs, all sorts of callback clues, hoping that Xie Lian's going to pick up on something. And that damn flower at the end of the table, I swear, I bet Xie Lian in the next chapter is going to be like, what a nice flower. And I'm going to be like, ugh! Put 2 and 2 together, sir. But that's not going to happen in this volume. We have 5 more. You know he's not going to figure it out yet. Of course not. But yeah. So they go through the temple. Of course they want to go inside. And the one thing that stands out is that as they enter the temple, Xie Lian notices there's no divine statues and no cushions. It's exactly as Xie Lian wanted from the get-go. And Hua Chong's been the only one that's listened. And of course, just to show how smooth Hua Chong is, Xie Lian's like, well, there's no establishment plaque here. And he's like, well, I've had this temple for a long time, but I was really hoping maybe you would write the establishment plaque. Maybe. Be like the ultimate piece of fan memorabilia. I feel like it's just like Hua Chong has like a lock of his hair here, the red the hair they tied around his finger, he has it over here. He has the red pearl that I'm sure he stole from Xie Lian over here. He's got all these relics hidden around the temple, and he's like, if I just had this like establishment plaque written by you, it'd be the ultimate gift. But yeah, so Xie Lian's like, oh well, he's like, well, why don't you write it? He's like, how about you compose one for me? And Hua Chong's like, well, why me? Like, we could go get a calligrapher or something. He's like, no. He's like, I want you to write it for me. And that's when Hua Chong says, I don't write well. And Xie Lian's kind of taken aback, like, there doesn't seem to be anything you can't do well. So you're telling me you can't write well? Which seems in hindsight like such BS, because either this whole thing was an elaborate prank to get Xie Lian to teach him how to do calligraphy, which I think, part of me thinks that there's like 3 things going through my head. Part of me thinks this is all a big elaborate ploy to get Xie Lian to do the calligraphy for him, because obviously. The second thing is that he did the painting for Xie Lian, like back in the OVA, so he can do it. He just, wants to seem more human to Xie Lian, or he genuinely cannot do calligraphy well and was trying to get Xie Lian to do it for him. One of those. Now, I guess I could see it being, it's probably one of the 2 things. Either he really can't write, which would kind of make sense because as a kid, he wasn't educated. He didn't go to school or anything. He probably died young. We still don't know the circumstances about that. So he never learned how to write. So that would actually check out if he legit can't write and he was waiting all this time for Xie Lian to write the plaque. That would check out. Or he has been waiting for this moment, knowing Xie Lian loves calligraphy, to lure him in to be like, teach me, sensei, and do that, right? I think it's one of those 2, or it could be a combination of both. Maybe he wanted Xie Lian to do the calligraphy and he doesn't know how to do it himself. That remains to be seen. But yeah, and Xie Lian's like, oh, well, write something and show me. And so I love this scene where he's like, okay, don't laugh at me. And Xie Lian's like, I won't laugh at you. Go on. And then as he writes, Xie Lian's like he realized how bad it is. And he's like, and that line where Hua Chong, while drawing madness, writing recklessly on the paper, chided half warningly, half jokingly, gay. I love that where he's like, are you about to laugh at me? I told you not to. And Xie Lian's like, my bad. Oh my God, I freaking love that. I love it. And he says Hua Chong was too funny. That he's like his erratic, like just wild penmanship. And then I love that they complete the poem. He completes the poem. He lets Hua Chong write the first 2 lines, which no water is enough when you've crossed the sea. No cloud is beautiful, but that which crowns the peak. Like Hua Chong writing the poem saying, I have met the end all be all most beautiful thing in the world, and it's Xie Lian, and nothing will ever compare. And then Xie Lian writes the other 2 lines saying, I passed by flowers that failed to attract poor me, half for your sake, half for the Taoism I seek. So that part fits Xie Lian because it's like, I pass by all these people, but they don't even affect me. I'm really just doing this for cultivation and for you. Like, the poem fits them perfectly, right? It's so good. It's like that, it just fits them to a T. And I love the idea that you have Hua Chong's chaotic drawing on the top 2 lines and Xie Lian's beautiful expressiveness on the bottom. It's like perfection. But y'all, this scene, I'm ready for Star Amber to draw this scene. This is just, it's so damn good. Because he's like, Xie Lian's like, you've got style. And Hua Chong's like, you mean madness. And he's like, no. He's like, in truth, it's not hard to write well. It's just writing with style that's difficult. So he's like, you've got it in you. You've got potential. You just have talent you haven't tapped into. And Hua Chong's like, are you sure? And Xie Lian's like, when have I ever lied to you? I love that. I love that Xie Lian's like, when have I ever lied? And it's like, well, not really. And so he's like, and Hua Chong is just, he laid down the foundation. He invited Xie Lian to his house, invited him to his church that he built for him, drug him into he's like, well, we tried the armory last time. That didn't go well. So plan B is calligraphy. He knows what Xie Lian likes. So he brings him over there and he's like, see, I'm really bad at writing. If only I had someone to teach me. And it's like, you're so smooth. He's so damn smooth. I was like, oh my God. And Xie Lian's like, well, I guess I could teach you how to write. And then, I'm sorry, y'all, but as Hua Chong's like, teach me, and he says, well, I wouldn't want to lecture. But then if it's anything Xie Lian's interested in, he gets all enthusiastic and it's that meme, okay? There's that meme where it's the photo of the boy, and the boy's sitting here like this, like explaining something, and there's some guy in the background like doing this, like looking at him like, keep talking. That meme, that is Hua Chong being there like, keep telling me about calligraphy, Gege. And Xie Lian's like, well, it's like this, that's exactly them. That's them to a T. Absolutely. And so he asks Xie Lian to try again, right? And there's perfume in the air. It's glowing. It's warm in this temple. Like you couldn't set the stage any better. And then he realizes what Hua Chong's problem is, and that he's holding his brush wrong. And so then he reaches out to he's leaning over Hua Chong and reaches out his hand to guide him. And he's like, oh, is this too much? But at this point, they've already kissed each other. So they've crossed that barrier, like the cracks in the dam. They've crossed that barrier. So what's stopping us now? Xie Lian's like, well, I'm already here. If I take my hand away, it'll look weird. It'll be awkward. So I'll just leave it here. And then he justifies it. And then Xie Lian justifies it. He's like, well, back in the gambler's den, he held his hands over mine and was trying to teach me how to use the cup. And in all honesty, he really didn't even teach me. He was kind of just using me. So this is much better. I'm actually teaching him something. So he thinks. But y'all, my heart just went like whenever it was Xie Lian's warm palm pressed against Hua Chong's cold hand and guided the brush across the paper, whispering like this. Yeah, that is peak romance right there. That is the shit I live for in this. You could give me 1,000 smutty chapters of the smuttiest smut in the world. You could give me swords and things being used and all this cruddy stuff, but that one line where Xie Lian's holding his hand, guiding him with the brush and whispering in his ear, not even meaning to be seductive, but it being seductive, that just oozes sensuality like nothing else. And I'm like, MXTX. That's what I'm talking about. That's what I want to read. I'm like, it's great. It's great. But yeah. And then you could feel his hand under his hand, Hua Chang's brush growing wilder. And he tries to correct it, but it's even more off course. And then he realized that he's been pranked. And that the ink on the paper was chaotic. Like the ink on the paper had like a spell cast to it. And he's like, San Long, don't be like this. Learn properly. Write properly. Oh. And then he was only pretending to be serious. Or maybe, oh, okay. So maybe as if his silly prank was a success, Hua Chang snickered. Okay. So either the brush was enchanted and doing it on its own, or Hua Chang was just making the erratic movements to like throw Xie Lian off as a joke. Either way, it's adorable and really cute. And then that's when Xie Lian realizes that even though his hand might have been cold, it suddenly felt really hot. And he looks over the edge of the altar and sees the tiny lonesome flower. Now, of course, Xie Lian is not going to put two and two together to know that it's the same flower that little Hua always brought him. He's probably not going to think anything of that. But I'm like, we the audience are sitting here like, it's right there. He's leaving you all the clues. It's like, I'm just waiting for Xie Lian to get it. I'm waiting for it to click. I'm waiting for it to happen. But it's not happening yet. So, these chapters were so good though, like so romantic and ridiculous and wholesome. And after all the doom and gloom and despair of like 3/4 of this book, as good as it was, I do appreciate that we're going back to like the silly antics and all of like the present time hijinks. Someone said in their comments, they were like, it's good because it reminds us that Xie Lian is alive and well, even after all the terrible stuff that happened to him. And I'm like, yes, that does feel a lot better. But man, these were 3 really good chapters. I am changing up things a little bit next week. I was thinking about it, and I think I'm going to be doing chapters 98, 99, and 100 next set. I was originally going to do 98 and 99, and then 100 and 101, and then 102 through 104, but I don't like that, the page number things, because next week it's only like 20 pages. So I'm like, and then I think part 47, which is chapter 100, is only like 10 pages, so that'd be only 30. So I think I'm going to do that. I think I'm going to do I don't want to do just 2 chapters. I don't want to do that. So I'm going to do 98, 99, and 100. We'll end on chapter 100 of Heaven Official's Blessing next week. I'm pretty excited about that, right? I'm pretty excited, not going to lie. So that should be exciting. I'm looking forward to it. But we'll be doing those 3 chapters next week and seeing what all we get. Again, are we in a dream? Are we awake? I don't know, but I'm very happy to have Hua Chang and Xie Lian chapters again because I have missed them being together. Like in the flashback, it's fun, but they don't get to have like their adult banter in the flashback chapters because Xie Lian treats Hua Chang like a kid because he was a kid. And so now it's nice to see them as adults having these conversations and flirting. And again, the cracks are starting to get in the dam, and I'm just like, I'm ready for it to burst, but it's not going to be in this volume. I know, but oh man. So I hope you all enjoyed this reaction discussion. I feel like it was all over the place because usually Whiteboard Coon anchors me in my discussion, but I just didn't know what I would write. I just draw hearts on Whiteboard Coon. That's all I would have done, would be drawn hearts, and that would be it. So, But I really hope you all had a good week. Please stay safe. Take care. And yeah, I will be back next week. I can't believe we're at the 100 chapter mark next week, but we will be with chapters 98, 99, and 100 of Heaven Official's Blessing. Bye.